Hello, my name's James Watling. Welcome to Peep. We are here today not in the studio but at our new location at World Headquarters, where we plan to host the future live shows. We are joined with entrepreneur, managing and musical director and the owner of an honorary doctorate from Newcastle University, Mr. Tom Corker. You can see the brilliant feature on Tom with the All4 platform, Any Colour You Like, which tracks and teaches you about Tom's history and also about World Headquarters. So Tom, introductions are over. I can talk to you
now. You make it all
now.
sound very grand.
Thank you. No, you absolutely. So for the people who don't know, as I mentioned before, they have the documentary, which I watched myself, fantastic documentary, shocking but also very enjoyable. And I need to mention the Druridge Bay thing at some point, if that's okay in the interview.
Feel free.
But if you just give us a brief synopsis of your history leading on to World Headquarters, with the idea that the viewers can find more detail through looking at the short documentary.
My history is the World Headquarters. Well, I've always been like an outsider from when I was at school. I was one of the few mixed race kids in my school, and I took a lot of hell for that. And as I got older, I sort of became a real avid soul collector, mainly Northern soul, and that really got me into music. I fell in love with a 3-minute love song. Yeah. And then I got into more different sorts of music, jazz, and then just kind of dived headfirst into music when I left school. And I look up now and here I am. So really it's just been, I don't know, how can I put it? It's really hard when someone says, what's your deal? That's why we have the website that we do. We've got a website where we spend quite a bit of time really accurately recording the whole history of the club. So the people who are interested can go and have a look.
Absolutely.
We don't want to ram it down anybody's throat, but if you are interested, you can go and have a look.
I had a look on the website myself. It's a lovely laid out website, actually, very interesting.
Wait till you see the new one.
I know. Cliff said you were going to do it, and I said to him, it's a great website. I love that.
But it's 3 years old now, and you've got to stay ahead of the curve.
Yeah, so absolutely, yeah.
Mid-April, I've got a really, really good new one coming, which will contain all that, but probably about a third as much more content again, because obviously more things have happened to us in the last 3 years.
It's user friendly. I mean, that was the thing I noticed. It's laid out very well. It looks lovely. I don't know if I can say branding's very, 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 very strong, but it's very easy to kind of navigate as well. And I have to say the thing that stood out the most, referencing what we were talking about before, my son Rhodes, he's a big fan of Public Enemy. So when I saw the painting there, I was like, oh, that looks great. But I love the imagery as well. It's fantastic. But when do we expect that to come out then? The updated? Is that going to
mid-April?
Mid-April time.
It's not updated. It's brand spanking new.
Brand new, right? Okay,
it's really, really
fantastic.
easy to use.
On the same, obviously, same search details, everything else will be the same.
Everything. It's just a lot easier to navigate, and with really modern fly navigation and a lot more content, so that it's much easier. The idea being, I always say, if you break your leg and you're in hospital and you want to kill a bit of time, you can just sit and go and look at all the different content. So I want to make the content as easy as possible for people to digest, so that people can understand what the club's about and what we're trying to do here. What our purpose is in Newcastle and what it has been and what we want to achieve.
Do you have a lot of people that, I mean, obviously you can kind of log or track how many people go onto the website. So is it quite a popular stopping point for people who either have been to the club and want to see more?
I'm not sure who it is who looks at it, but it's a very, very, very heavily trafficked site,
Traffic, yes, there's a lot of traffic going through.
You can tell that by the amount of people who keep asking me if they can advertise on it, and I keep saying no.
Right, so there's no advertising on the site?
There's no advertising on it at all. That's not what we're about.
Yes, staying true to it, yeah.
World Headquarters is not for sale. So it's the idea that you allow people to advertise on your site demeans your message. It makes you makes your message part of the sort of commercial reality, and our message isn't that. I want to be able to say on that site anything that we believe is true. So in order to do that, can't have any. It's not like the American government where people give you money to say things for them. It's not like that with us. We just speak truth. So if you see a review of a bar or a restaurant on there, that's what we think of it. We don't say anything negative about people, only on the positive tip. But we're not for sale. The idea is that the club's got to be kept pure.
No, I respect that.
And the way that we project ourselves has to be with integrity. And in order to do that, you have to have the confidence to stand alone, which we have.
Yeah. Just as a mention, I'm sure this will be in the links will be in the description anyway. But are you on social media, on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter?
Well, I mean, the virtual world versus the real world. We probably should be a lot more active on social media than we are. We're very active on Facebook, but we're just about to really kick off our Instagram. We've got an Instagram, but we don't really cane it. But we're about to start doing that.
Right.
And we do a bit of tweeting, but we don't do a lot because again, we're more we're more based in the real world, even though we have to have an online reflection.
Yeah, of course.
The World Headquarters is firmly based in the real world, you know.
No, I mentioned Instagram because, I'm not a huge social media fan. It's certainly not so much Facebook. But I enjoy Instagram because you get a lot of worldwide reach and you get some very kind of, I suppose, truthful and successful people who actually engage with you and genuinely interested in what you're doing. I had an author, just quickly, this is my Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu origin, BJJ, actually based in World Headquarters, not in the club, but upstairs. And I mentioned that because a close friend of mine, Chris Reed, who's been on the show, he's one of the presenters on the show, bought me a book called About Jiu-Jitsu, essentially by Chris Matak, if I'm pronouncing his name right. And I actually put that on Instagram, and he connected and commented, "Oh, great, you're reading the book, glad you're enjoying it." And that's what I love about Instagram, and you can just click buttons and share to your other media. I just think it's a lot truthful.
There's no doubt
honest,
about it. It's a very great platform, but it's something which you have to do it properly.
Yes, absolutely, yeah.
At the minute, we're busy working on our new site. Once our new site's up, we'll be exploring those other internet avenues. But the game is long. We don't have to. Yeah. We can go at our own pace. We don't have to do everything everyone would expect us to do. We do the things that we think are important in the order we think they're important.
100%.
And so, and the club isn't about its online presence. The club is about the music that's played here and the people who come in and interact with us and giving opportunities to young promoters. And that's top of the list. And how we may appear to other people is largely irrelevant because we're so busy focusing on that. The website, I think, comes from the work we've done, but the work we've done has to come first.
Yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely. That's how truthful.
I mean, you used the funny word before. You used the word, the website's well branded.
I knew you wouldn't like the word branded. It was the first word that came to mind.
In our case, it's just not correct, because World Headquarters isn't a brand. World Headquarters is a thing. It's like a living thing, So it may be very, very well visually represented. And so, that's a really great brand. If you think it's a brand, that's because you haven't looked behind it. That's why the website's there. So people can go and go, oh, this isn't a brand. This is actual. This is a lifetime commitment by a massive group of people to trying to change the world one record at a time. As pompous as that may sound.
No, I love that. Hey, that's gone on the description. Changing the world one record at a time. I love that.
That's the idea.
That's great. Tom, before we are going to have a little tour of the club, if you don't mind, because I'd love to see some of the murals and the paintings and some of the photography, the images that we talked about before. But so that's going to be in section 2, part 2. But before we do, I've got to ask you about Druridge Bay. So on the viewers who are going to watch the mini documentary, there's a mention of Druridge Bay, and I spoke to you before. So I used to go there I still go there, but I would take my children there, surfing there, spent summers there, and then suddenly it came on that you had a party at Druridge Bay. I was like, oh, that's my beach. That's fantastic. So could you just talk to us a little bit about that, just about how you got into it, how it set up, how the night went, why I wasn't invited? What was the year of it? Was it 80s?
It was 1986.
86. So I'd have been 12. So I could have made it. I think I was living in Australia at the time, but I could have made it.
No, it was just back in those days, in the mid 80s.
18s and over, right?
The city was very different back then. Especially for people of colour, it wasn't somewhere that was welcoming in any shape or form. Racism was very prevalent, especially in the sort of football. I was running the Trent at the time, and the sort of football side of it was, you had a lot of racist confrontation, most days.
Right.
The police still are, I think, fairly out of control, but the police were totally out of control back then. I mean, totally. And all the door staff were totally out of control. So if you've got a sort of racist culture, a racist set of police, and a racist set of doormen, and you put them all together in the city centre, you can see why people like me aren't welcome. So we couldn't really go anywhere in Newcastle. There was nowhere we could have a scene. So we decided we would create our own, and we did that by throwing illegal parties. You say illegal, but I don't even know if there were laws in place to stop us then. It was way before, the arrival of ecstasy or the criminal justice bill. So the Druridge Bay one in particular is one of a few that we did, where we, basing it from the Trent, but word of mouth. There's no Facebook, no social media, there's no mobile phones. You used to have to ring the phone like that.
I remember the days.
So you could do an underground party, and you could, and people wouldn't. Only people you're told would know. It wasn't something that overnight there'd be thousands of people.
There was no internet then, kids.
No. You just do your
no computers.
Well, that we had. Of friends. So we promoted this party and put it on up there, and But we went over the top, for the times. We thought we wanted to do the most far-out thing we could. So we had generators, Space Invader machines, pool tables, circus tent. And we just, 5-a-side goals. And we just took a sort of city to the beach for the night. And we there was a farmer nearby who had the land, and we went and saw him through the day and said, I want to have a party for a few friends. He's like, yeah, fair enough. Oh, here's a bottle of whiskey for you. Thanks very much. And he got slaughtered and never bothered us. And we took 700 people up there on coaches and on a summer's night and had just a fantastic time. You know, the sort of thing that no one had ever seen before. It sort of, you know, generally blew people's minds.
Yes.
And it blew our mind as well. We couldn't believe that we managed to put this hustle, because we were only doing it because we were young kids and we wanted to be the fly guys. We wanted to have somewhere to do our music, and wanted somewhere where we could control it. So there wasn't any racism, there wasn't any sexism, there was nobody fighting. And that was the idea, just to sort of, you know, it was, I suppose, the beginning of World Headquarters, the idea that, all right, the culture of the city as it is does not accept us, therefore we shall create our own culture. Either we'll find a way or we'll make one. And that was the start of it. When we did that and we got 700 people there, I sort of thought, hang on a minute, we're onto something here. And you can sort of trace World Headquarters right back to there. And it's now, World Headquarters is now the evolution of that. It's doing more and more of that. Then realised, if we're going to do this, we've got to stay legal. Because when ecstasy arrived in the late 80s and gangsters came into the scene, you couldn't do nights like that. You would be in danger if you did nights like that. So it was, okay, well, let's skip the legitimate clubs. And that was when we bought the original club down on Marlborough Crescent in 1993.
Okay. So 2 questions, Tom, before we move on to part 2. The first question is, when's the next one? The second question is, can I come?
When's the next one?
Underage bit.
Everything that we do
and
now...
can we have the Space Invaders machines again,
everything
please?
that we do now is legal. You know, the idea that, oh, you throw a legal party and you're really cool. You throw a legal party and you're really cool, but you throw a legal party with a view to building a culture that you can establish in legal society, and you're even cooler. And that's what we want to do. We didn't just want to do it to be well known and notorious. We were doing it because there was nowhere for us to go. And as a result of that, we've now created somewhere we can go. And where, you know, and that was the purpose of it. So it wasn't, I won't be stepping back into doing illegal parties because I don't wish for the appeal of that. I wish to succeed in the real world. You know?
Of course.
I want the club to last forever.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if anyone's watched our latest live show, episode number 15, we briefly mentioned our plans to move here to World Headquarters, where we will be based and we'll be running the live shows from. So we are opening our platform for a pre-club show to guests, which will be running around about from 9:30 till 10:30, 11 o'clock, which will be before World Headquarters officially opens. So we are looking for those who would like to be involved, who would like to come along to the first and successive shows at World Headquarters. You'll be welcomed here. And we're also looking for guests who could come on. We're very interested in promoting music, obviously with literature, with film, so with art. Anybody who'd be interested in getting in touch, then please do so. So Tom, it was originally Cliff Sainsbury, who's the head CEO of Peep, and obviously he'd got in touch with you with an idea of kind of reflecting on the old Tube and the Andy Warhol idea. There's also a YouTube channel. There's a chap from New York. I can't remember the name of the chap or the channel. My friend Chris Reed put me onto him, and he's kind of in this warehouse and he's cooking, but he's very kind of like New York, very streetwise, and he has guests come on from sports and from art and things like that. So I think that's the idea of what we're basing it on, is having this open forum where everybody's welcome and involved. But could you tell us a little bit about your thoughts on this, let's say, collaboration with Peep, and you being generous enough to let us come here and you know, and hold our live shows at World Headquarters?
Yeah, I mean, I know Cliff from way back. You know, I used to come to the club years ago. As with most people in Newcastle, at some point, you know, they've intersected with World Headquarters, and I kind of would know them. And he came and he pitched me the idea, and I thought, that sounds really interesting. And, you know, obviously with the club, we've got this great big 6th floor, you know, 21,000 square feet facility, and we don't use all of it, you know, and also in terms of times we're open, we're not always open, you know. And so I always say that any sort of artistic enterprise that needs a home that we can provide a home to, if we can expand what we're doing here and allow other people to come in and make it easier for other people to get a foot on the ladder or expand what they're doing, then we're happy to do it. And the idea really appealed to me because it was a new idea. It seemed to me to be, for Newcastle, fairly ahead of the curve. And I thought, yeah, that would sit well here. I mean, and it's something which I think it's no skin off my nose to do. And I'm happy to facilitate that. That's the purpose of the club, is supposed to make it easier for people to get a foot on the ladder than it was for me to get a foot on the ladder. Be that promoters, be that people doing TV stations, be that people, you know, I don't know, just all sorts of stuff happens here that you wouldn't imagine, because people come to me and say, listen, can we do this? I go, yeah, of course you can. You know, because we've got the facility, and if I can let people, if I can allow that to go to be for other people and share that with other people, that's the example you want to set. You want to make it easier for other people to believe in themselves, because eventually that will alter the culture of the city. And I see that altering the culture of the city now. There are certainly, I can think of, I'll not name them, but I can think of several businesses in the city which are very influenced by us or run by people who used to work here or interact heavily with us, who've sort of carried on that, right, I believe in myself ethos, and they're going for it. And that's how you change a culture over a long period of time, by being nice to people and sharing. You know, that's the way to change things in the right direction.
Lovely.
That's what I believe.
You know, it's interesting. Just quickly. Back to the live show, we're covering. We do book reviews. We talk about books, and we're talking about Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life, and we're covering a rule at a time. And just very briefly, you know, what he talks about is how, you know, especially for girls and for, you know, particularly I think for young boys, you know, that they go through it, and then as adults we go through our entire life never been told what we've done is good, never been given any kind of support or any kind of positive message in a sense to say, yes, you can do that. Yes, let me help you. Usually it's no, or no encouragement whatsoever. So to hear you say that way, because and so it's interesting saying that, and the kind of, you know, as we're covering that on the show, and that's the, I suppose, is it the ethics or the not so much the morals, but the ethics or the stand that you're making is to help other people, allow them to become, you know, what they want themselves to be or what they could potentially become. But also that it's much easier to say no than it is to say yes, and yet you're saying yes. So it's just it's a very powerful message, to a positive thing to hear. You know,
I think it's just, you know, if you want a world of opportunity, you have to do your best to create it.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, you go through the door, and you can go through the door and you can close it behind you and go, it's all mine, or you can leave the door open and get all your mates in. And that's my sort of attitude. You know, I believe that for the city to be better, it's important that people like me do the best we can. You know, I could just run this business and just be about money, but it's about way more than money. It's about the opportunities you can give young people, and you know, the absolute catalogue of promoters who come through here, who promote, some of whom I mentor quite heavily, some of whom I don't need to. But you know, you try and give kids who've got a little tiny idea a bit of help, so their idea can grow into a scene and they can have a culture, and that's what gives the table many legs. You know, you do lots and lots of different little things with lots and lots of little individuals, and you do your best to empower them as best you can so they can achieve as much as they can, and that has a knock-on effect. And that's what makes us a sort of genuine subculture, as opposed to just the other places in town which open, sell beer, flash a few lights and close, you know? Yeah. We actually stand for something, and that's because that's what I want. I want the club to, when the club eventually comes around, I can't see that happening, but when the club eventually does come around, because all good things must end, I'd like to be able to look back and say, you know, yeah, we did a good thing, and I'd like to think that if we weren't here, we would be missed. Yeah. You know, we couldn't just be replaced by someone's checkbook, you know, because you're a genuine subculture, and people love the premises for it. And lots of little scenes are empowered, be it a little industrial goth hardcore scene, or, you know, or the grime scene when it first came out, or, you know, the reggae sound system scene, you know, things which are all big scenes in other parts of the country and world, but which in Newcastle, they need somewhere where they can be nurtured. Yeah. And over the decades, many scenes have been nurtured by World Headquarters, and it's helped develop those scenes and develop the individuals who are in those scenes and given them more power. And the more powerful the people who believe in the things I believe in, like, you know, being anti-racist and being anti-sexist and being, you know, I can't really say I'm anti-capitalist, because obviously we have to pay the rent.
Well, I think ethical capitalism.
But I'm against the sort of capitalism I see today, where, you know, you've got the government, you know, whacking stuff on the BBC to make you terrified, so that all you want to do is comfort yourself by spending loads of money on your credit card that you haven't got. I don't want people to do that. I want people to believe in themselves and take fun from the original things, you know, the dancing around the campfire, the painting on the walls, you know, the thing that we represent here, that sort of caveman thing that you can take right back, the human condition. I want people to take heart from that, so they can face up to the crazy Donald Trumps and think, yeah, I see through that shit. You know, I see through that because I know what's real, because I've grown up in a place that respected me as a human being and expanded my knowledge of music and expanded the interactions I had with other people. I met other interesting people there, because it's a place where interesting people go. You know, that's... Well, that is a very long-winded...
No, that's it's interesting.
About something.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. No, I agree
but,
with
you know, it's very hard to nail that that's why I hate doing this sort of thing, and that's why I very, very rarely do it, this kind of interviews at any media, because it's always like it's very hard to nail what you're doing. It's a bit like a sausage. If you've got a sausage and you look at it, you know, that's a sausage. If you cut the sausage in half, you go, oh, that's what it looks like. But at any point in the sausage where you cut it, it looks a little bit different. So anytime you talk to me, it looks a bit different, but it's always a sausage, if you know what I mean.
It's like a kaleidoscope. Whichever way we turn it, we get different kind of patterns and different images. On that note, we mentioned that we're going to be based here now at World Headquarters. So we're looking to organise and arrange to have the first live show in the next month or two. We haven't set an official date as yet, but we'd like to just shout out to any universities or colleges that would like to be involved in some way. If they could get in touch with us, we'd really appreciate that. And if you'd like to be considered a guest on the show, referring to the notes, or you'd like to come down and check it all out, you can contact us at peepmagazine.co.uk. You can keep an eye on our social media as well. And if you'd like to subscribe to the YouTube channel for updates, and we will be letting you know exactly when we're going to launch the first show. So let's have a tour, if that's okay. We'd love to have a little look round and look at some of the iconic images and photos that we have on the club, and let people see just how big and expansive the club actually is.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Okay.